It's not my fault that the party of FDR and JFK is turning into the party of LOL and... Members of Congress tweeting things like cancel rent, cancel mortgage, and no more policing or incarceration, declaring that capitalism is slavery, canceling Lincoln and Dr. Seuss, teaching children they're oppressors and math is racist, making Mr. Potato Head gender neutral. But Democrats have become a parody of themselves, just making rules to make rules because it makes you feel like you're a better person, making sure that everything bad never happens again, which you can never fully do. It just makes everyone else's life a drag.
The left is furious, and Bill Maher? He couldn't care less. On a recent episode of his long-running show, Maher didn't just push back, he delivered a searing, unfiltered takedown of exactly why he's done with the modern Democratic Party. No apologies, no softening, just ruthless clarity. If you think you know what he said, you don't, not until you hear the whole thing. Smash that subscribe button, because we're diving in right now.
It's not me who's changed, it's the left, who is now made up of a small contingent who've gone mental and a large contingent who refuse to call them out for it. But I will. That's why I'm a hero at Fox these days. Which shows just how much liberals have their head up their ass, because if they really thought about it, they would have made me a hero on their media. But that can't happen in this ridiculous new era of mind-numbing partisanship, where if I keep it real about the nonsense in the Democratic Party, it makes me an instant hero to Republicans.
You heard it straight from the man himself. Maher didn't slip away quietly into the political night. He made it loud, made it clear, and made it count. In his view, the Democratic Party didn't just drift, it surrendered. Handed itself over to a radical fringe so detached from everyday reality that it's become almost impossible to take seriously. But here's the part that really stings. Maher isn't saying he left the left, he's saying the left left him. Same man, same values, same convictions he's held for decades. It's the party that morphed into something virtually unrecognizable. Millions of reasonable, clear-eyed Americans found themselves stranded, watching a political home they once believed in transform beyond recognition. Maher isn't bitter about it, he's bewildered. He's disgusted. And if you think that was his most explosive take, trust me, he was just getting warmed up.
The same thing happened in reverse to Darth Vader's daughter, Liz Cheney, who is now a hero to liberals simply because she recognizes Biden did not steal the last election. What a sad commentary on our politics, where simply acknowledging reality is now seen as a profile in courage. People sometimes say to me, you didn't used to make fun of the left as much. Yeah, because they didn't give me so much to work with.
Now, the critics haven't been silent. Wanda Sykes has publicly said Maher talks too much. Dave Chappelle has voiced real exhaustion with his relentless commentary. And plenty of voices on the left have accused him of punching down on his own side in ways they call actively harmful. So when Maher says the left complains he roasts them harder than he roasts the right, he's not making that up. The receipts are right there. But here's what those critics consistently, conveniently ignore. Comedy follows absurdity. A sharp comedian doesn't choose his material, the material chooses him. And the modern left has handed Maher an almost endless supply of fodder that simply didn't exist 10 years ago. The ideas are wilder. The rhetoric is more detached from everyday life. The outrage has become more performative than ever. Maher isn't targeting the left out of malice. He's targeting them because, frankly, they've made themselves an irresistible target. And when the material writes itself, what's a comedian supposed to do? Look away.
The oath of office I took was to comedy. And if you do goofy wherever you are on the spectrum, I'm going to make fun of you because that's where the gold is. And the fact that they are laughing at it should tell you something. It rings true. What? When normal people read that San Francisco has basically legalized shoplifting, they think Democrats have gone nuts. They think, that Ted Cruz guy seems like a real stiff. But at least he believes in the concept of shopping with money.
Then Maher drops one of his central reasons for walking away, and the crowd absolutely erupts. And honestly, it's not hard to understand why. Because blue states across America have been quietly greenlit to some of the most bewildering policies you've ever heard. Homeless encampments sprawling unchecked across city streets while residents step over them on their morning commute. Toy stores stripped of gendered sections in the name of progressive sensitivity. Students handed automatic passes just for showing up, no meaningful assessment, no accountability, no standard to meet. These aren't fringe ideas whispered in obscure political circles. These are real policies being implemented in real Democratic-run areas. And Maher refuses to look the other way. He calls it exactly what it is: well-intentioned nonsense that does genuine damage to real people. The crowd's laughter isn't just amusement. It's recognition. Because deep down, even people on the left know something has gone seriously sideways. They feel it. They just haven't been willing to say it out loud.
It's not my fault that the party of FDR and JFK is turning into the party of LOL and... Members of Congress tweeting things like cancel rent, cancel mortgage, and no more policing or incarceration, declaring that capitalism is slavery, canceling Lincoln and Dr. Seuss, teaching children they're oppressors and math is racist, making Mr. Potato Head gender neutral.
But Maher isn't finished. He rolls up his sleeves and keeps going, and this next wave hits just as hard. Canceling student debt wholesale, painting capitalism as some irredeemable villain, and then, perhaps most memorably, stripping Mr. Potato Head of his gender, turning a beloved children's toy into a battleground for identity politics. It sounds like satire. It reads like a punchline. But these are real policies, real cultural decisions, being championed by the modern left. And Maher isn't laughing, at least not entirely. Because beneath the comedy is a genuinely frustrated man who watched a party he once believed in slowly trade pragmatism for performative symbolism. Each item on his list lands like a hammer blow, and the cumulative effect is damning. The left, Maher argues, has confused radical gestures with meaningful progress. And that distinction? That distinction matters more than most people realize.
And now an emoji for pregnant men. Real, I'm not making it up. California just passed a law requiring large retailers to have a non-gendered toy section. A non-gendered toy section? Isn't Ken a non...
And here's where it gets truly fascinating, because this is the moment that might make your jaw drop. Gavin Newsom once sat across from Maher and was put directly on the spot about California's controversial law mandating gender-neutral toy sections in retail stores. His response was nothing short of extraordinary. Rather than defending the legislation on its merits, rather than making any substantive argument at all, Newsom flipped the entire narrative. He claimed that toy stores themselves approached lawmakers and practically begged for a law forcing them to reorganize their own shelves. Let that sink in for a second. A sitting governor, with a straight face, argued that private businesses lobbied the government to impose new operational burdens on themselves. Think about what he's actually saying there. It's the kind of answer that makes you question everything you just heard. It's almost impossible to imagine retailers petitioning for regulations that complicate their own business model and cut into their own bottom line. It was a breathtakingly hollow response. And Maher, sharp as ever, wasn't buying a single word of it. Neither should you.
Need a law for that? Do you have to inject yourselves into everything? From where you can throw a frisbee to who can braid hair? This is why so many people, by the way, were triggered by COVID policies. They were already sick of rules. Regulation should be a good issue for Democrats. It's certainly one they're associated with. And I think the average voter would agree that banks and chemical plants and drug companies need watching. Telling a company, you can't dump the waste from your hog farm straight into the water supply. We're mostly all for that. But Democrats have become a parody of themselves, just making rules to make rules because it makes you feel like you're a better person.
Next, Maher sets his sights on something that's been quietly gnawing at him for years: the Democratic Party's seemingly insatiable appetite for overregulation. And this critique cuts far deeper than most. Because Maher isn't simply arguing that there are too many rules. He's making a far more damning case. He believes many of these regulations aren't born from any genuine desire to build a better, more functional society. They aren't carefully crafted solutions to real, pressing problems. Instead, Maher contends, they're largely performative, elaborate gestures designed less to help ordinary people and more to allow those in power to feel morally superior. Regulation as virtue signaling. Legislation as a pat on the back. In Maher's view, the Democratic Party has become less interested in actually solving problems and far more interested in appearing to solve them. And that gap between doing good and merely feeling good is one he finds not just frustrating, but fundamentally dangerous to the future of the country.
Making sure that everything bad never happens again, which you can never fully do. It just makes everyone else's life a drag. The Biden infrastructure bill has a provision that requires all new cars to install an alert system that goes off when you leave a baby in the back seat, which is something done only by crackheads and people who sadly, yes, do it on purpose. And after every one of us winds up bearing the cost for cars to install this alarm, you know who's going to ignore it? Crackheads and people who do it on purpose.
And honestly, Maher is absolutely right. Overregulation has rarely been an effective deterrent against bad behavior because bad behavior is rooted in human nature. People genuinely determined to cause harm will cause it, regardless of whatever regulatory frameworks lawmakers stack on top of each other. History has proven this, repeatedly and without exception. The uncomfortable truth that politicians consistently refuse to acknowledge is this: regulations rarely frustrate the people they're designed to stop. They frustrate the rest of us, the law-abiding, tax-paying, rule-following citizens just trying to navigate their daily lives. Take something as straightforward as vehicle ownership. The compliance requirements have multiplied dramatically over the years, mountains of paperwork, tests, and bureaucratic hoops for ordinary people to jump through. And yet the reckless drivers, the uninsured motorists, the exact people these regulations were engineered to address? They ignore them entirely, without a second thought. Good intentions, poorly executed, consistently punishing the innocent while the guilty carry on completely undisturbed.
A sensor light is not going to fix this problem, and Democrats no longer possess the common sense to understand that not every problem in the world can be fixed with a regulation. But don't tell that to the advocacy groups who also want every future car in America to only start when the driver blows into a breathalyzer. Oh, great, my other car is a Karen. Right. Well, you know, it's also not safe to drive when you're crying. Should we make a car that follows your texts and stops the engine when you're dumped?
So there you have it. Bill Maher, one of the sharpest, most culturally perceptive comedians of his generation, has looked at the modern Democratic Party and walked away shaking his head. Not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but out of deep, genuine frustration with a party that traded common sense for ideological performance. From absurd state policies and hollow regulations, to governors peddling laughable explanations, to major businesses fleeing in droves, Maher has cataloged what he sees as a party in serious, undeniable decline. And the most striking part of all? He's not a conservative. He hasn't swung right. He is simply a man who refused to move when the goalposts shifted into the realm of the ridiculous and had the spine to say so out loud. Whether the Democratic Party ever course corrects remains to be seen. But one thing is absolutely certain: Bill Maher will be watching. And the moment they slip up again, he'll be the first to call it out. If this video made you think, hit that like button and subscribe, because we cover stories like this every single week, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Racism is bad. How about a car that won't start unless you play a message about tolerance from George Takei? Regular viewers of this program may recall my long battle to get solar power hooked up at my house. It involved this shed, which had to be built to house this solar battery. Yes, that battery needed a house to live in. And not just any house, one that had to follow the specifications of this chart. That's a real chart of the steps we had to go through to get this thing turned on. Democrats have to stop thinking that what the voters dream about is to be hassled.
And the consequences of this relentless overregulation aren't theoretical anymore. They're playing out in real time. And California is the most glaring exhibit in the room. The state has hemorrhaged individuals, businesses, and entire industries at an alarming rate, all fleeing the suffocating combination of excessive regulation and punishing taxation. Chevron, one of the most iconic energy companies in American history and a California institution for well over a century, ultimately packed up and relocated because the state's regulatory environment made sustainable operation virtually impossible. Joe Rogan, once one of Los Angeles's most prominent cultural figures, loudly and publicly departed for Texas, citing taxes and government overreach as the final straw. These aren't isolated incidents. They are part of a devastating, unmistakable pattern. And yet, astonishingly, California's leadership appears utterly unmoved. No serious reflection. No meaningful policy recalibration. Just to continue doubling down on the exact same approach that drove them all away in the first place. If that doesn't tell you something, nothing will.